Hey, everybody, and welcome back to For the Booze.
For the Booze.
That's right.
We are back. I'm actually very excited for this episode. It's something that it's kind of a topic we've done in the past, but this one's it's more interesting. In my opinion, the story is pretty wild.
I'm excited.
It goes.
You told me bits and pieces, and they're so all over the place. I don't know how it's all going to come together.
If this story was a sport car, it would do 0 to 60 in like half a second.
Oh,
This is wild.
big claims.
We are heading up to the Northeast. We are going to go over to Connecticut, and we are going to cover a pretty famous case that has a movie about it.
Connecticut is beautiful.
Connecticut. We're going to Connecticut.
Like connect?
That's how it's spelled.
Ticket?
Yeah, that's how it's spelled. Connecticut. And we're going to visit a little town called Southington.
Ooh.
You ever heard of it?
No.
It's a pretty just small bedroom community.
Okay.
We're going to talk about the case, the Ed and Lorraine Warren case. Yeah, I know. It is called The Haunting in Connecticut. Now, I'm sure a lot of you watching or listening to this, you're going to know this because it was a 2009 movie. And
I've definitely heard of the movie,
Yeah, I know
but
you
I don't
didn't
think
see
I've
it.
ever seen it.
I know you didn't. You don't watch horror movies. She's the only girl who does a paranormal podcast who doesn't like haunted or horror movies. It's
I don't
so
like
weird.
the way they make me feel.
How do they make you feel?
Freaking anxious, and it drives me crazy.
Do I tell the story again? I think I've already told it on this podcast. Yeah, I mean, you're definitely not the kind of girl who would pretend to sleep through a movie. But this is the case. The movie didn't do. It didn't do bad, but it didn't do great either. It was just kind of.
Sense.
It was just kind of like a.
Yeah, it was made. It was their movie.
Yeah, I mean, it didn't bomb by any sense, of the term there, but it didn't do great. And this is the Snedeker family, I believe is how you say it.
Snedeker?
The Snedeker family. And they have a wild story. It really, in my opinion, it puts a lot of the other ones to shame. The story does anyway. I just think it's just weird.
Okay. I'm ready.
You want to get into it?
Yeah, I do.
The town of Southington, Connecticut is situated about 20 miles southwest of Hartford and about 80 miles northeast of New York City, 105 miles southwest of Boston, and 77 miles west of Providence. This is the area I come from.
Yeah, we flew into Providence.
Yeah, we did. Providence, Rhode Island. Now, it includes the areas of Plantsville, Marion, and Milldale, each of which has its own post office and distinct architecture. The town rests in a valley with two mountains on its east and west sides. Now, Southington has the nickname of the Apple Valley due to the many orchards that still dot its landscape. The Quinnipiac River.
That looks right.
Yeah, the Quinnipiac River flows through the town, and it is home to Mount Southington ski area, which has drawn visitors since the 1960s. Sounds like where we live.
Yeah.
Now, Southington was formally established as a town separate from Farmington in 1779. Its roots go back to a much earlier time. Samuel Woodruff moved from Farmington to the area then known as Panthorn. The settlement grew, prospered, and came to be known as South Farmington, and then later, the shortened version, Southington.
Panthorn?
Panthorn.
Sounds like a southern town, not a northeastern
heading
town.
on down here to Panthorn. I don't know, Southington.
Yeah, that's pretty bad too.
Country too. Now, Meeting House, independent of the Farmington Parish, was first constructed here in 1726 and was used until 1757. Its location on the site of the present Oak Hill Cemetery is commemorated by the first Meeting House stone and plaque. This town does go back farther. When I was doing my research, I believe the first people settled in this area in 1666.
Wow. That's quite a while
and
ago.
They lived very neighborly and friendly with the Native Americans in the area.
As everyone should.
Well, we all know that they didn't eventually.
I know.
American history, baby.
Boo.
It's dark. Now, Southington became a thriving community with the construction of dwellings, taverns, and stores. Industry flourished rapidly. In 1767, Atwater's grist mill was established, and by 1790, Southington had a button factory, sawmills, a brass foundry, and potash works, and I have no idea what that means.
I was going to ask you, what are
I don't know.
potash works?
They work on potash.
Potash? Is that like corned beef hash?
I don't know. Look
but
it up.
They just shorten it to potash?
I doubt it. Not a lot of people like corned beef hash, unfortunately.
Yeah. Only gross people like it.
No. Yeah, we do. I love it. It's
So
really
gross.
good. I guess you just got to grow up poor to appreciate it. In addition, the first machines to make carriage bolts were developed in Southington. Southington played a part in this country's military heritage. Important town visitors during the Revolutionary War include George Washington, Marquis de Lafayette, and Count Rochambeau. So, Washington and Lafayette and Rochambeau.
Yeah. We know all of those names.
Yeah, they came through here. Southington originally was a small rural farming community. In the early 1900s, Southington developed as a manufacturing center, but still maintained a very small population of a few thousand residents. Some of the products invented there include the first cement that was able to harden underwater, the first carriage bolt cutting machine, the breakneck rat trap, and a new tinware process.
What?
So the rat trap is like what we think. Like, they got the little snap arm.
Whoosh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and underwater cement.
That hardens underwater.
I mean, I'm guessing it's underwater cement because it says underwater. I don't know if they mean that's like the stuff we buy now, like in a bag.
I didn't even really know that was the thing.
Yes,
Like,
you
is
have
there
to add
cement?
water to concrete.
I understand that.
Do you?
You act like I am not a DIYer.
You're blonde.
It was at this moment that he knew. He f***ed up.
You're pretty. You're really pretty. You're beautiful.
Don't touch me.
You're beautiful and so smart.
I'll murder you in your sleep.
I would have to imagine that there is underwater cement because there is they figured out underwater welding.
Yeah, like underwater piping and things like that. But I just figured it was like built outside the water and then taken into the water.
I don't know, but that's exactly what I was saying. Like, I don't know if they just meant like the kind you just dump a bunch of water into, and because it's best to mix your cement, obviously. But I have known a lot of people who will just throw water into the dry cement, and it does work. So I don't know.
Interesting.
So if anybody has an answer to this, please let us know, because obviously we don't know.
Let us know in the comments.
Man, I should have did better research. With the
Potash.
I don't know what potash is.
Definitely potash.
Yeah. With the overall decline of industry in New England and the construction of Interstate 84 in the mid-1960s, Southington developed into a bedroom community in which the town saw explosive growth and population that has surged to over 42,000 people today. 28% of workers in Southington are still employed in manufacturing, and most of them in the production of fabricated metals and aircraft. It's a bedroom community for Hartford.
Yeah. Okay.
So there's a lot of, people live here and leave to go to work. In May 1942, during World War II, the town was selected by the War Department to be highlighted in a defense booklet called Southington, Connecticut, Microcosm of America. Now, photographers roam the community taking photos of residents at work and play and in their homes and churches. Now, the final publication was intended to show friends and foes alike in Europe the typical American citizens and families, their traditions, and their values. Thousands of copies were dropped from military airplanes over Europe during the Nazi German occupation. This was to hopefully, show them that they were killing
Like normal people.
ordinary people.
Okay.
Right? Because Hitler was very good at propaganda. And during the World War II, they kind of made us out to be basically every character you've seen of an American, smoke, drink, kill.
Right.
So they were trying to show them that we were just like they were.
Right. That's crazy because I knew during World War II that planes flew over and dropped papers and pamphlets.
Also dropped a lot of bombs.
Didn't realize that this was that.
Yeah, and
Wow.
a lot of the photos taken for that was taken in this town.
That's crazy.
Yeah. Also, in 1942, the mural Romance of Southington was painted in the town's post office by Anne Hunt Spence. Murals were produced from 1934 to 1943 in the United States through the section of painting and sculpture later called the section of fine arts of the Treasury Department. The WPA was the largest and most ambitious American New Deal agency, employing individuals to carry out public works projects.
Super cool.
Yeah.
I love that.
Awesome. Is it still, did I say whether or not it was, I wonder if it's still there.
Maybe.
That'd be really cool to see.
It really would. When we were leaving Florida, I know that they were like hiring people to do murals around town and things like that. And one of my friends I used to work with got commissioned to do one of the murals.
Pretty rad.
Yeah.
Now, on May 24th, 1962, the town was heavily damaged by a high-end F3 tornado. The tornado, which was near an F4 intensity at the time, damaged or destroyed numerous buildings, homes, businesses, and vehicles throughout the area before it dissipated northeast of the town. Overall, the storm left 1 dead and 50 injured.
Heartbreaking devastation lies in the wake of the tornado that struck Waterbury, Connecticut. It cut a path 3 miles long, 200 yards wide. Though lasting no more than a minute, it destroyed several factories and 300 houses. Damage topped $1 million. National Guards were brought in to prevent looting. At such times, it's not easy to look for a bright side. Yet remembering the high death toll of similar tornadoes.
Wow.
Which,
I mean, could have been worse.
I'm gonna sound like I'm downplaying it, but I would think a tornado that powerful would have done more damage.
Right. And I get like buildings and things like that, but I think it's the lives that matter the most.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah. And
I guess people were, finally somebody listened and was like, oh, there's a tornado coming. We should get in the basement.
Yeah. Please hide.
Because a lot of people don't. Now, in 1952, just 36 miles away, the NESPR, or the New England Society for Psychical Research Occult Museum, was opened by famed paranormal investigators Ed and Lorraine Warren in Monroe, Connecticut. The Warrens would go on to have a colorful career in the field. In 1981, the Warrens were involved in a murder case in which the defendant argued he committed the crime while possessed by the devil. Now, the judge was not convinced, and Arnie Johnson was found guilty of murder. The Devil Made Me Do It case, also known as the trial of Arnie Cheyenne Johnson, and it would garner significant notoriety.
Freaking Arnie.
Arnie. I mean, it's a good movie.
Yeah, it is a good movie.
The movie is probably, in my opinion, was the best Conjuring movie.
Agreed. I watched it. I actually watched it.
Yeah, you did.
I did. It was really good.
But I do agree. The movie was cool, but I just don't think he was possessed.
I don't either. I think he just killed him and was like,
whoops.
Oh crap.
I was possessed, yeah.
Whoops.
Now, the case went on to attract worldwide media attention due to its unusual demon possession defense, leading to it being depicted in numerous books, documentaries, and most notably, of course, The Conjuring, The Devil Made Me Do It. Now, Arnie Johnson was sentenced to serve 10 to 20 years after his conviction of first-degree manslaughter, and he would be released after just 5 years. Now, today's story takes place in 1986 Southington, just 5 years after the conviction, the same year Arnie Johnson was released. And I don't know if anybody's ever drew this line before, but when I was looking this up, I just started, I was like, I was like Charlie Day, like stringing stuff together.
Does there happen to be more murder?
No, but there happens to be this weird connection where everything that we just talked about happens within a 40-mile radius of itself.
Oh.
So all these things, they're all in this little group. And I don't know if that means anything. It's just something that I noticed.
Yeah.
And I thought that was super strange. Right? Because the Warrens were known for, they went to England. They traveled the country.
Everywhere, yeah.
So the fact that all of these, not all of them, obviously there were other cases that, had movies and books and stuff, but these were pretty major ones. Mm-hmm. And they're just like, they're neighbors. And the occult museum seems to be like right in the middle.
Wow.
I'll give up more at the end, obviously, of what I think that means, in my opinion.
Okay.
People are going to judge me. You should have told me my strings weren't even.
My strings are always even on my uneven on my hoodies.
Yeah, but you're pretty, and I'm not. I have to do extra work.
Please.
Now, paranormal lovers can all agree there are certain haunted house cases that are classic and legendary in their activity. Amityville, out on Long Island, is top of the mark when it comes to infamous haunted house cases. Whether you believe it or not, the story is well known and debated to this day. Mm-hmm. The Smurl haunting in West Pittston, Pennsylvania, which we covered, showed the world that when a family is haunted, nobody is off limits, not even the family pet.
So sad.
And the Entity House in Culver City out of West Los Angeles was so active that the photographs documenting the activity still cannot be replicated today. However, I did find a compelling article about the matter on skepticalinquirer.org where they did a pretty good job recreating the photos.
I didn't know that was a thing. Skeptical Inquirer?
Yeah, it's I'm sure there's going to be people who listen to this that are just really all into the paranormal and are going to be like, oh, not that. Kind of like how the people don't like when you talk about debunkers.
Yeah.
I don't feel like there should be a rift between the two. I think there should be a joining of the two.
100%.
Right? Because the one thing I think that we can all say that we don't want is somebody faking stuff. So I think there is a need for people to be out there debunking and questioning and recreating. It doesn't take away from the paranormal. It just holds people accountable.
It doesn't, absolutely. And in another sense, too, like the evidence that you find or what have you, you want that.
You want it to be legitimate.
To be legit.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, you want it to be legit.
For people to not question it, I think says more than the people that do question it.
Yeah, because, it's fine to be a full-in believer, but that doesn't mean you need to be a gullible believer either.
Absolutely.
And I think that's kind of where we stand on this podcast, is that's why we read the story. We do the best research we can do. And then at the end, we always ask, do we think it's real? Because we don't want to be gullible about it. I want to believe, but I want to believe in what's real, not what's faked and then told to me is real.
Absolutely.
So stop hating on each other and come together as a community. I
Preach it, baby.
I think it's what we need. Preach it. Now, for some, it's hard to believe at times, but there are claims of haunted house cases popping up more and more in the paranormal community, even today. The Bothell Hell House outside Seattle, Washington, breaks about every rule in the book, while the Screaming House in Union, Missouri, literally screams at its unlucky inhabitants. Now, each story seems to have claims much different than the last, some more lighthearted, some violent, and some even that claim is... It seems there's no rhyme or reason, no rule book to follow when it comes to family hauntings.
That is very true.
One house made famous in the modern day by the movie The Haunting in Connecticut should be considered among the legendary haunted ranks. The Snedeker house of Southington, Connecticut, the alleged real story behind the movie. Now, in 1986, the Snedekers were a family that struggled in a lot of ways. Now, 1986 was a year when things suddenly and without warning started to go wrong in the country. It was a year in which the gods themselves seemed to have conspired to intervene in the action and altered events. It was a year with progression, change, and, unfortunately, some significant setbacks. It gave us some of the very best movies of the decade, exciting music, technology, huge sports moments, and an event from above that made us all look up. Now, the average monthly rent was about $385. So
wow.
Lucky.
$385?
$385.
Bruh.
I don't even think we could live here for a week with that. A new house would cost around $89,000, and a gallon of gas was 89 cents. But two major tragedies also happened that year that those old enough will probably never forget. Now, the meltdown of Chernobyl.
Has suffered one of the worst disasters in the history of nuclear power. Massive quantities of radiation have apparently been released in an accident at the Chernobyl power station in the Ukraine. Many thousands of people live in the vicinity. Moscow admits there have been casualties, and signs are that a big relief operation is underway. This report from our European correspondent, Mark Colvin.
In an unprecedented step, the Kremlin acknowledged there'd been an accident, but only after Scandinavian scientists had picked up high radiation levels. A statement from the Soviet Council of Ministers was read on television, a sign of the degree of Moscow's concern. Diplomats speculated that the mention of casualties could indicate a high death toll. The Soviet news agency TASS said one of the reactors at Chernobyl, north of Kiev, had been damaged, but there are no details of how serious the accident was. Soviet nuclear plants like this one we were given a rare opportunity to see in 1984 have less built-in safety precautions than Western plants. TASS said measures were being taken to help the injured, and the government was setting up a commission of inquiry. Reports from Kiev say all bus services in the city have been cancelled. The vehicles are being used instead to evacuate the Chernobyl area, with a population estimated at around 50,000. The wind blew a cloud of radiation over the Baltic states towards Scandinavia. Some radiation monitors recorded levels 10 times above normal. In Sweden, about 600 people were evacuated from a nuclear plant north of Stockholm. Authorities there thought at first the radiation levels must be coming from a leak in their own reactor.
And another major event that happened much, much closer to home, especially for us. Teacher Christy McAuliffe from New Hampshire, a teacher selected to be part of the Space Shuttle Challenger crew, would die alongside the other 6 passengers on board when it exploded not long after it launched.
So the 25th Space Shuttle mission is now on the way after more delays than NASA cares to count. This morning, it looked as though they were not going to be able to get off.
1 minute, 15 seconds. Velocity 2,900 feet per second. Altitude 9 nautical miles. Downrange distance 7 nautical miles.
Looks like a couple of the solid rocket boosters blew away from the side of the shuttle in an explosion.
Flight controllers here looking very carefully at the situation. Obviously a major malfunction.
I still remember I was 5, and I remember when this happened, and I remember being very little, and I couldn't really comprehend what I had just seen. And I lived, when people hear this, like, I didn't just see it, like, I lived in the town it took off from.
Yeah.
I lived in, we lived in Cape Canaveral, and I watched it launch, so I saw it blow up. And I couldn't really rationalize it, so I remember just asking my mom, I said, what happened? I didn't understand. I don't think I really understood until I went to school and somebody explained it to me. Mm-hmm. So it is one of them. It's like a 9/11. It's just one of them things that stays with you forever, and you will always remember it. It's crazy.
Absolutely. I do not remember it. It happened the year I was born.
But
so
yeah, it happened right before you were born.
Yeah. And my parents, my whole family is from that area. And I didn't come back to Florida till I was 9, but I knew exactly what happened. I had heard all about it.
It's so weird, like, I don't know how much of this I'll leave in, but that we met, considering that we met in a different town than the town that we're both talking about. Mm-hmm. And we both moved away at various times and came back, and then we ended up together in a different town just to move back to that town and then move away.
Yeah.
It's very weird.
I know.
It's super strange.
It was fate.
I don't believe in fate.
But it was fate.
Okay.
If I wouldn't have decided to go
my wife says
that night.
My wife says it's fate, so it's fate.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's marriage. Now, overall, it was actually a good year in America. Growth was up, inflation was down, interest rates declined significantly, unemployment rates were down by 0.3 percentage points, but overall unemployment was actually still pretty high by post-war standards. So those who found work did well, while neighbors who couldn't struggled exponentially. Now, Alan Snedeker was a former stonemason who many in his life suspected of having struggles with alcoholism. His wife and mother of their 3 children, Carmen, was a waitress in between jobs, and finances for the Snedekers was an ongoing issue. The family's ongoing financial issues were further complicated for them when their oldest son, Philip, was diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma, which is a rare and sometimes deadly cancer that attacks the body's immune system with intensity.
Oh, poor baby.
That's what my brother went through.
Oh, my God.
The Snedekers looked to get Philip into a cancer treatment hospital as soon as possible, and they found one located outside Southington. Packing up what belongings they had, they moved to Southington in search of a new home to live in while Philip was going through a series of cancer treatments. Now, in need of a big house, big enough for the family, as they had 4 children, Philip, Bradley, Alan Jr., and their daughter Jennifer, plus 2 nieces that eventually moved in with them. The family found a duplex-style, multi-story home to rent in a relatively safe neighborhood. From the outside, it was 2 floors on a quiet street with plenty of room for everyone, at least near the hospital. And the way I would explain this is, do you remember when I took you back to where I'm from?
Yes.
And I had to explain to you that all these houses weren't just houses, they were apartments.
So weird.
Well, this is how this was, but it's set up a little different than the ones that even I'm used to. This was the first floor and the basement were one, and then the second floor, and I think there might have been a loft or something, was the other floor, was the other apartment. So
it was 2 apartments slammed into one, and they took both of them?
No, they lived on the bottom floor in the basement.
Okay, gotcha. Okay.
So they as far as I know, they shared this building.
Got it.
I know about honestly, minus the basement, this is how my apartment was when I lived in Taunton. I don't know, I just felt like that needed to be pointed out because this house is, if it was a single family home, man, this would be a cool house. It's a big house.
It's huge, yeah.
It's like a 5-bedroom, I think, 5-bedroom, 3-bath, or something like that. Now, the price range being affordable, the Snedekers jumped at renting at the home. Little did they know, what they thought was the perfect Connecticut home was also formerly the Hallahan Funeral Home.
Uh-oh.
Now, Daryl Kern, the former owner of the Southington home, confirmed that prior to purchasing the property in the 1980s, it had served as the Hallahan Funeral Home for multiple decades. There is a debate about this that I guess people claim that Mrs. Snedeker, who's now Mrs. Reed, knew prior to moving in
about the funeral home.
That it was a funeral home. But in any interview that she's ever given, she very adamantly suggests that she did not know.
Interesting.
And I was not able to find any instance of where she ever admitted that she ever knew it was a funeral home. But this is like a debated thing.
Right.
Because there are people who believe that she did know. And,
weird.
And the only reason I'm saying this is because coming up, there's a lot more to do with this. So, yeah, it's just something I need to bring up. I left little things like that out so we could talk about them, and that's one of them. It's pretty crazy.
That's weird.
It is weird.
Like, you either do or you don't, you know?
I mean, but it makes...
Or did or you didn't.
But it would make sense that the real estate people wouldn't tell them, because who... Would you want to live there?
Right.
But they might have.
And this beautiful place was a funeral home.
They might have. They might have still lived there, though, because they were in a tough spot.
They were in a spot. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. The day the family moved in was exciting, and everyone was hopeful for this new beginning. The Snedekers and their children each took off to choose their new bedrooms. Philip, of all the rooms in the house, decided to choose the basement. Upon moving his furnishings downstairs into the basement, the family quickly discovered a hidden collection of antiquated mortuary equipment. They would find a hoisting apparatus for coffins, a medical gurney, blood drains, and even toe tags and head tags.
They didn't even take them out.
Not to mention, they found photographs.
Oh, God.
And if I can find them, I'm going to put them in this video. There is one that I've heard of. I don't know if I can get away with putting on YouTube. Because it is a dead body. And for some reason, I wasn't alive during the time, but the way I heard it described was it's like tied up.
Oh, what?
There's some claims at the end of this that will make sense.
Oh my God. Why would they leave it in there and be like, sure, you're good to move in? Like,
I think it was just leftover equipment in the basement. I don't know.
Still, realtor fail.
Yeah.
Oh
for
my
sure.
God.
Now, this discovery was not limited to the basement, though. The massive home also had some leftover furnishings in different parts, like dresser drawers. Inside the drawers, the Snedekers found a few photographs of what can only be described as pictures pertaining to people being prepared for a funeral or even burial. These are children.
Yeah.
Some of these children are little children.
Oh, God.
Like, I think some of them are younger than our kids.
Oh, God.
Oh, yeah. Maybe that's why we were tougher back then. Because our parents were like, here, you want to see some dead bodies?
I mean, we were, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, because it's definitely not like that now.
I mean, I'd still not want my children to see those things. Yet. Moving on.
Toughen them up a little bit. I don't know. Another room was a former coffin room that still held plenty of coffin pieces in there left over from its funeral home days. A quick check with the town's assessor of real estate property confirmed that the home was indeed the former Hallahan funeral home. And there was another part of this that I left out because I couldn't find it anywhere else. A lot of the majority of the story came from one website. I mean, it didn't all come from one website because I wouldn't do that's plagiarizing. I wouldn't do that.
Right. And you cross-check your information.
Well,
and
and
stuff like
I
that
changed
too, so.
some things, but in this article that I found, the long form version of this, they say that the family found headstones outside the house. I could find this nowhere else.
What?
And because I couldn't find it, I mean, I looked into this for probably a good 45 minutes. Mm-hmm. And if I can't find it, I'm not leaving it in. But I will bring it up that it was in the story.
Wow.
But I don't know if there's any, I don't know if there's any truth to that at all.
That's crazy. And again, realtor fail.
It would make sense, though. I mean, I'm not going to say it wouldn't make sense, because if the house was a funeral home, it could make sense that they would have headstones there. I mean, I feel like that's an easy line to draw.
Yeah, I guess.
I'm just saying.
It's weird. What is it like for unclaimed bodies or
I don't know. Maybe I don't, maybe they did headstones too. I don't know.
Weird.
Now, just 3 hours after moving into the home, Carmen claims that Philip, her oldest son, said, quote, "Mom, this house is evil. We need to leave here right away." And Carmen says that she told her son, quote, "Evil is in the heart of man, not in a house." 3 hours after they moved in.
He's like, he felt it. He's like, yeah, I don't like this.
He more than felt it.
Ooh.
She dismissed the claim, but Philip is said to have soon begun seeing a spirit with long hair and a thin face. The spirit would allegedly say Philip's name and target him. Carmen claimed, quote, "My son started seeing this young man with long black hair down all the way to his hips. He would talk to my son every day. Sometimes he would threaten him. Other times he would just stand there, just say his name, which was enough to scare him."
Yeah, I bet.
Supposedly, he started seeing this immediately.
That's wild. So crazy. Like, you move in and immediately your
The
teenage
hauntings
son,
always take time to start. This one was immediate.
it's like, hey, right in your face. Like,
It's
this poor
very
kid
weird.
was already going through so much.
And he's a teenager.
He did
so
not need this.
He's going through more than what I've read.
Wow.
Yeah, Philip has a rough time. The idea of living inside the old funeral home did bring about some initial concerns for the Snedekers. However, given their financial commitment to the home, as well as Philip's future cancer treatments to consider, they decided not to let it deter them from living their new lives. You gotta remember, they're
I get it.
they're kind of having a hard time right now.
I get it.
The first signs of paranormal activity inside the house were a series of bizarre sounds that would occur day and night. Mysterious tapping, along with scratching sounds, seemed to emanate from every part of the home, but none of the family could ever figure out where it was coming from.
Ugh. Rats? Bats? I
mean,
know.
rats could make sense, actually.
Yeah.
Now, the house also had a dumbwaiter where the chain pulleys would rattle and move on their own without anything loaded into them. Carmen's young children initially claimed that they were seeing ghosts walking through the home and were so scared that they wanted to leave.
Yeah, I bet. I'd be like, we're leaving, right?
You got to remember, like, we're talking immediately. Like, this did not wait. It was like they brought their stuff in and then boom, activity. Or so they claim. I mean, I'm not saying yes or no yet, but so they claim.
Wow.
But there are a lot of articles where they claim it. Now, she brushed off all their claims as overactive imaginations, but she too started getting an eerie feeling about the place herself. The children often talked about the lights flickering on and off, and their father, Alan, got upset about the misuse of electricity and removed the light bulbs from the rooms. But I didn't want you to read this. The lights flickered after the bulbs were removed.
Shut up. What?
Yeah. Now, there's a big thing between the movie and the real story. Even the family who is still alive does not like the movie because of how twisted the story is. They do not appreciate what they did to their actual occurrences. And I found a website where they were able to sit down and interview the actual people from the family. Mm-hmm. And one of the questions was, did the lights really flicker? And they would say yes, even after the bulbs were removed.
God.
That is wild. That's the first time I've ever heard that.
That is terrifying.
How does that even happen?
I have no idea.
There's no filament.
No clue.
The dumbwaiter was used for loading and delivering bodies down to the basement area where the mortuary was located and was now Philip's new bedroom. Mysterious sounds continued and sudden fluctuations in temperature occurred. One room would seem to be ice cold in the middle of July, while the room adjacent would be a normal room temperature. The piercing coldness would then disappear as quickly as it had emerged in a room, all without any logical explanation. So this isn't like air vents or drafts.
Right.
Then these mysterious activities gradually increased to become more physical.
Oh, no.
Oh, yeah.
Aw.
It gets wild.
No.
Carmen was taking a shower one evening, and the shower curtain began to cling to her body, as one does. Stop reading. I see you trying to read ahead.
I'm not. I'm following along.
It clings to her body.
And yes, I know. Like the air blows and
that.
it like sticks on you.
Makes,
I do too.
Oh, it's so
I bought these
upsetting.
little magnet things that go on the bottom and they just hold your
It does
curtain
stop
down.
it from happening.
It does. They're great.
While science can prove this could be a natural phenomena, Carmen claimed that the shower curtain began to mysteriously rise as it clung to her. She claimed the shower curtain wrapped itself around her face and neck, choking her, and something was even pressed against her so she couldn't fall away from it like a body. Blinded with shampoo in her face, her muffled cries for help were eventually heard by her niece Tammy, who was staying with them, and she pulled and unwrapped the curtain from around her aunt's throat.
Oh my God.
Think about that the next time the shower curtain touches your leg.
No, I don't want to. Oh my God. That is terrifying.
That is terrifying.
That is so scary.
I just don't like the feeling of it. This makes it way worse.
So much worse.
Neither could explain what happened. Little did Carmen realize that the attacks were just the beginning for her as she began to repeatedly be assaulted by an unseen force. The assaults would happen at random times when she was completely alone. Carmen would later reveal that the entity abusing her would become very forceful and slap her in the face. Carmen's niece Tammy also claims to have been assaulted. Tammy had later described a quilt from her bed levitating off her all the way up to the ceiling. Tammy also claims that she would see a black shadowy face manifest during these terrifying times, along with an unexplained whispering. She would cling to her Catholic faith and often would try to utilize her rosary beads, only to have the same force try to viciously rip the rosary beads from her grip.
Those are mine. No, absolutely not.
Don't touch them.
Ugh.
Now, apparitions inside the home started making themselves known in a physical sense, appearing as a taller woman with long black hair, pale skin, and piercing black eyes. Another was in the form of a man with whitish-colored hair and often seen in a pinstripe tuxedo. They are dressed.
Weird, but okay.
Now, Philip kept up with his radiation treatment at the University of Connecticut Hospital, where he frequented, and was noted as having a bizarre change in personality habits and would lash out uncharacteristically at staff.
Wow.
Now, the terror inside the home mounted more and more when Carmen claimed that while mopping the floor, the water turned into blood and gave off a rancid smell reminiscent of rotting flesh. Quote, "The mop water was blood red. I mean a deep, deep red. It made my skin crawl. I started getting nervous that I was ruining the floor." And that's what she said. She actually said that in a 2002 documentary.
I can't.
You seem uncomfortable. You're going to get more uncomfortable.
I don't.
Oh, yeah, it gets way more uncomfortable.
Okay.
The Snedekers started to worry when Philip's personality began to really change. He became irritable and reckless, often inflicting cruel punishments on his younger siblings. On one occasion, Philip placed Bradley on a gurney and spun him around until the younger boy begged him to stop. He would not stop spinning him. He also locked his brother in a chest and just walked away.
That's not fun.
Yeah, he was just going to leave him there. It does sound like something I would have did to my little brother, though.
Yeah, probably. But
Now, the worst incident came after Philip attacked his cousin Tammy and was consequently forced to spend 45 days in the hospital. Doctors eventually diagnosed Philip with schizophrenia after he told them about the entities that he saw regularly. But they noted that the medication that he was on to treat his cancer could not have given him hallucinations or triggered any dormant schizophrenic illness. The Snedeker family decided it was best to send Philip to live with relatives, and reportedly, Philip stopped hearing voices and seeing spirits after this.
So as soon as he left the house.
That's what they claim.
Right.
It's the claim. Now, Carmen's 18-year-old niece, who was living with the family at the time, I could never find a name, but I think it's Tammy.
Okay.
But I'm not sure.
Okay.
And according to Carmen, was actually molested by the spirit. Its hand was seen making its way up the girl's nightgown. Quote, "That's when I knew for sure I was dealing with something supernatural," Carmen told People magazine. The most shocking was the claim from both Carmen and Alan that unknown forces had and son.
Stop.
This is like another level.
This is like pure terror.
I think with was it the Smurls or was it the other case? But I know we talked about one where like they were getting groped by the spirit.
I think it was the Smurls.
It was either the Smurls or the Black Monk of Pontefract. I can't remember. But this is different. This is
so different.
Yeah,
It's too much.
This is way different.
It's too much.
I
have no word. Nope.
It's crazy. Carmen and Alan reached out to the clergy and several paranormal investigators. According to researcher John Zaffis, he saw a spirit who said to him, "Do you know what they did to us?" And Zaffis went on to tell people that all he wanted to do was, quote, "get my car keys and get out of the house."
Yeah, I bet.
I mean, if you guys...
I wouldn't want to be there either.
Now, both Carmen and John alleged that 2 priests visited the home and left frightened. Desperate to get rid of whatever force was haunting them, Carmen contacted demonologists and future characters in their own based on a true story franchise, Ed and Lorraine Warren.
Yay.
I'm sorry if anybody out there believes in them. We've just been over this a million times. We don't.
We have definitely been over it a million times.
Yeah,
They come up in so much, though. Like, I mean, so much. And they did a lot.
They are the most well-known paranormal people.
They are. And they did a lot for the paranormal community in the time that they started doing their thing.
But listen, I really thought about this, right? Mm-hmm. I don't believe in them at all. At all. I don't think anything they did was legit. But the thing that I want to point out is with as many cases as they did, at some point they had to make it to a few actual haunted places.
Yeah, like actual and for real.
That's what I'm saying. So just by happenstance, just because of the nature of the beast, you would have ended up at that's how I feel about like Zach Baggins. Eventually, you're going to end up at an actual haunted place.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. How could you not?
I think there probably have been, occurrences where they show up and it is haunted.
Yeah.
It's odds. It has to happen. Carmen contacted the Warrens and asked them to come investigate the house. According to her, the rosary beads that she was holding onto during the phone conversation were actually coming apart. The Warrens arrived the next day with a priest, and they say conducted a blessing on the house, though they claim it had no effect. The Warrens researched the home and allegedly found that when the house was used as a funeral home, one of the employees was convicted of and performing satanic rituals. Which would make sense with the one man saying, "Do you, hearing the voice say, do you know what he did to us?"
I mean, yeah, but oh god,
I hate to break it to you. I guarantee that happens a lot more than people think.
I don't want to think about it.
People get busted for that.
I don't want to think about it
more than people know. It does happen. It's gross.
Just
but
burn me
you know
alive.
what?
I'm good.
I'm already dead. I don't care what you do to me.
Ugh.
After conducting their initial investigation, the Warrens sought out an exorcism. The bishop is said to have assigned 2 priests who conducted another blessing and said a mass in the home. During the mass, Ed Warren claimed to suffer from heart issues that were resolved once the rite had been completed.
I'm sure they did. All better.
I didn't look more into it to find out, so
I figured you didn't.
I'll take his word for it. What do you mean? You don't think I do my research? It's just Ed Warren. I didn't want to.
Exactly. I know you didn't.
I've never heard of anybody else being healed from somebody reading any Bible stuff.
I don't know.
Now, the Snedekers moved out of the house after more than 2 years as residents.
2 years?
They went through that for 2 years, yeah.
Absolutely not. Oh, my God.
Paranormal activity in the house was alleged to have just stopped after the exorcism, though Carmen recalled a priest warning her to live her life carefully. In the years that have followed, no other residents are said to have reported any demonic activity, or any activity for that matter.
Interesting.
None. Now, the story of the Snedekers eventually had Hollywood come calling to tell the story of the haunting in Connecticut. The hauntings inside the home and even Hollywood's story are loosely based on alleged true life occurrences.
Loosely.
Well, even the family says that
Right.
the movie is just wrong.
Right.
It's very loosely.
So I'm assuming that before they made this movie, they had to find out the true story. Why change it so much? Why?
There was actually another article I read about that, and it was something about when they bought the rights, they told the guy making the movie, make it more interesting. So they told him to do it because they want to sell.
Right, but then later you complained about it? Like,
No, the family didn't. No, they sold the rights to the story, but that's where it ends.
The guy who then had the rights.
Yeah, because
I got you. Okay.
Because once they sell it,
Yeah.
they're just selling the rights to it. They weren't participating in the making of the movie.
No, I get that. But they had to get the story from somewhere.
I still don't really understand what you're trying to say.
Someone came and interviewed the family.
The family's story was out there like a decade and a half, 2 decades before the movie ever came out.
Okay.
There's numerous articles. There's been books, documentaries, long before the movie came out. They sold the rights. So somebody already knew the gist of the story, but said it wasn't interesting enough. Do more.
Okay, fine.
As for the Snedekers themselves, they have seemingly faded into post-haunting obscurity. Carmen is known to give rare talks on the haunting that she and her family experienced. She believed that any other family going through a similar situation knows that there is hope. I call BS, though, about the obscurity thing, because I've seen Carmen in a ton of stuff. She goes by Carmen Reed now. She's married to somebody else.
Oh.
And she looks like she is not doing too bad financially.
Oh, is she?
Yeah. She
is an uppity lady?
She looks like, those well-off ladies on the back of a book in those pictures.
Yeah.
That's what she looks like.
Oh, okay.
The world may never know what really happened in the house at 208 Meriden Avenue. Skeptics claim to have debunked it, while paranormal investigators and the family that lived through it swear by what they saw. One thing for sure, though, the Snedeker family and the town of Southington, Connecticut, will never be the same again.
Ominous.
And that's the story of the haunting in Connecticut, or the Snedeker family haunting.
Snedeker.
Yeah, they threw out all the stuff that they had found in the basement. Like they cleared it out themselves. But there were pictures. There were more knick-knacky things like coffin handles and just lots of random little odds and ends.
Weird stuff, yeah.
But Philip was schizophrenic.
Wow.
He was diagnosed schizophrenic. So I do believe that the cancer medication wouldn't have nailed him with, extra schizophrenia or anything. Mm-hmm. But I think maybe it just, you have to, the way I think of it is things like that often get triggered from life stress.
Yeah.
And they just uprooted. He got cancer. They had to move. He's in a new house. Maybe he's having an episode. He freaks out even more.
Right.
So
it could have exacerbated those
absolutely.
things. Yeah.
Or it could have brought it on altogether.
Right.
Because he's going through a lot, but apparently the sexual abuse kind of stuff, it happened for a while. Which, like I said, I'm sure there are other claims of that happening, but this is the first one that I've really come across that's gone really all the way with it.
It's usually just so scary.
It's usually just I get groped in bed, or
a hand ran up my leg, but that was
occasionally though, like the Rams head in where the guy said that a succubus would come and
do succubus things.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But this is the first time, especially, it's usually a family member, not both of them. I don't know. A lot of this just seems incredibly weird. And honestly, the family is not doing bad financially now, so.
I'm sure.
And, that reminds me of the Smurl family.
Mm-hmm.
A family that was struggling, that called Ed and Lorraine. And
now they don't struggle.
The Smurl family's story didn't take off quite as well as this one.
Right.
And again, this wasn't a great movie. I saw it once, and I'm sorry, I thought it sucked. I didn't think it was a very good movie.
Well, you are a horror movie buff.
No,
so
you'd be able to make it through this movie.
I'm sure.
It's not very good.
I'm sure.
But because of the way it was marketed, and it was during a time before people started, saying, hey, we should look a little more into Ed and Lorraine Warren.
Yeah.
I think I looked it up and it said it made like 78 mil.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's it?
But I mean, it's not a flop though.
It isn't.
It's not a flop.
But it's not great.
It's just a mediocre number.
It's like a meh.
And
movie.
there are a plethora of people out there who will say that the story has already been debunked, but then there are people who say that it was not. You know what it is? It's just like the Amityville. It's just like the Smurl family. It's just like the Enfield haunting.
You know what else it is?
What?
Confusing.
You know what else it is?
What?
It's very much just another Ed and Lorraine story.
I know.
But at the end of every show, just like the Amityville and just like the Smurl family, I have to ask you a question, Megan. And it is. Is it real? When it comes to the Snedeker family haunting, that's what I'm going to refer to it as, even though I may title this episode A Haunting in Connecticut. Do you think that it's real? Do you think something really happened?
I think that they may have had weird things happen, but no, I don't believe that it was to this extent. I don't. Could things have been happening? It was a funeral home. After all, things were left behind. Could they have maybe seen a shadow person or heard scratching on the wall? Sure. But was it as wildly crazy as they are making it out to be? No, I don't think so. So I don't know how I'd rate that one, but...
Well, you already said no, so
I guess.
I don't know how you rate it.
But yeah, that's my answer. What about you, babe?
I give it a Z out of X. Is that a rating? I'm going to say...
It is now.
I'm actually going to say I don't think anything was really happening here.
Okay.
I'm not going to speak to maybe some of the things that I could speculate on because I don't know if they're true or not. But I do think the majority, if not all, of Philip's issues were psychological. Mm-hmm. He dealt with a lot of stuff, and understandably, I'm not talking bad about him in any way. He was a young guy who already had some stuff going on, and it exasperated other stuff that may have laid dormant. I think, and I'm sorry if anybody out there who listens to us, we've always said this is just our opinion, but I think it was a good financial grab for parents that were really struggling in life, and I don't blame them. I really don't. It's hard to have kids and trying to live and scraping by. I'm not mad at them for it, but I do believe that a lot of these crazy claims were probably made up.
Agreed.
Because nobody else in the history of the house's time has had problems.
Because Ed and Lorraine came in and got rid of it.
Well, technically, it was the priest.
I know.
But I mean, and Ed and Lorraine are pretty synonymous with sell me your story, let's make some money.
Oh, 100%.
Conjuring.
Absolutely. Yep.
The Conjuring, the Amityville Horror, the Smurl family.
So many.
They've done this, the Enfield Haunting. They've done with all kinds of stories, so it's nothing new. I'm sure we haven't seen the last of Ed and Lorraine movies to come out, even though they're both gone now.
Right.
So, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
No,
and I'm really sorry. That Philip had to go through what he did.
Absolutely.
A
poor kid.
There's 3 other kids. Could you just imagine living in that house with all this going on? Your parents trying to be like, no, stuff's happening. Tell everybody stuff's happening, and your brother is really freaking out and starting to take his aggression out on you.
Right.
And he's the oldest.
Oh God, I couldn't imagine.
So
too much for a kid.
That's for sure. Unfortunate. I mean, we've had such a good run of the seals of approval.
I know. We had to get one eventually. They can't all be like, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, if you go back to our catalog of episodes, we have a lot of no's.
I know. We do.
But that's just our opinion. And honestly, if anybody has access to any of these places we say no to, and you can get us in there, yeah, we'll go.
I'm down.
I mean, we'd have to figure out how to get to that location, but
yeah,
I want to go. I know I tried to get us into Skinwalker Ranch yesterday.
What?
Yeah. Your friend.
Oh.
She said that she knows. I think she either said she knew or she actively knows who owns it. But she also said that they could not get us in. So
lame.
But anyways, this is where we're going to end it. Where can they find us?
Well, they can find us on Instagram at forthebooze_podcast and on Facebook at forthebooze.
That's right. And you can also find us on X or Twitter, or I hope that God they changed the thing back to Twitter.
I know.
At For the Booze. You can also find us right here on YouTube at For the Booze for you podcast listeners.
Right here.
And on TikTok at For the Booze. And it's Patreon time.
Patreon.
Maybe I'll have to come up with like a little jingle for that too.
Oh.
And we're going to start off by, of course, we got to go with, the highest level tiers. We have Jen Kim. I'm just going to have to figure something out for your initials there. I can't really, what am I supposed to say? The King? But I don't think that's right.
Okay, next.
Jen, top tier Kim. And we had one of our other Patreons, they leveled up.
That's right.
And that is good friend now. I think it's safe to say good friend of the show.
For sure.
Tina.
We talk all the time.
You're always just going to be Tina, the magnificent Madot.
Ooh.
We talk all the time. And she's really become a friend of the show, just like I feel like I've known Joe for a while now. Mr. Joe, the malevolent Mattern.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah, because he goes out and ghost hunts, and he's always making it sound real spooky. I like it. And, of course, our other really good friend, Teresa. Oh, it's Teresa O'Donnell. And we want to thank you guys, because really you are the building blocks of really helping get this thing started going in the right direction. As we said, we are going to be using any of this money for upgrading the equipment that we use, because you've seen the videos. We need a new camera. But what else is there?
Well, if you want to join our Patreon, anybody else
/
listening,
forthebooze_podcast.com.
That's right.
It'll already be on the screen, though.
And if anybody has any listener suggestions, if you have a spooky story or anywhere that you've been and investigated in and you think it was pretty cool, or just a weird random story, write it in to forthebooze12@gmail.com.
forthebooze12@gmail.com. Yes.
That's right.
Oh, you know what? I forgot to read Jen's story, and we had another story. We haven't had them in so long that I have forgotten.
Boo.
I'm bad at this job. Okay. Well, we'll have to do them next week. We were on a much shorter time frame than usual with this.
He literally did the research, and then we came down later and recorded.
Yeah, I did
the same day.
I did this all in the same day. So this isn't our normal thing. So I promise I will get to these. I'm sorry, guys. We were also, I don't know how to frame this. Somebody sent me an email a few days ago, or maybe close to a week now, to look into a news story.
Ooh.
This isn't, I don't know how to go about this. We may do it as a Patreon thing. Mm-hmm. But it is about a girl who was hearing demonic voices. This isn't the news. This isn't paranormal news. This is news.
Like actual news.
Yeah, so there was something to do with demonic voices and death.
Wow.
So I do want to look into it.
I mean, I like true crime too.
I mean, look, we've done topics like that in the past. We did imaginary friends. Yep. So maybe people who are just brushed off as having mental problems, but hear demons and stuff, maybe that's a topic we should do one day.
I think that's a great idea.
I think that would be kind of cool.
Yeah.
You guys are watching the thought process go down in real time. And for our podcast listeners, 5 stars, rate and a review.
Absolutely.
And hey, if you people watching want to do that too, it can only help us get farther.
Do the comment, subscribe thing.
Yeah, so you can get more history and mystery behind it all.
That's right.
Oh, man. All right. Just take us out.
Well, thank you, everybody, so much for listening. And we will see you on the next one.
Bye. Stay out of the basement. For real this time, though. I'm not even joking.